All right, good afternoon. How's everybody enjoying day one of JNUC? Yeah? Awesome. How about this beautiful city? Great crew we got here? Yeah. Awesome. I'm Adam Derrick. I'm a field sales engineer covering healthcare and life science accounts at Jamf. A little bit about me. I've been with Jamf for over 5 years. Prior to that, I've been managing Apple devices in the enterprise for the last 16 years. So former Jamf customer and also some other tools that are out there. I'm joined here today by John and Darren. I'm fortunate enough to be their sales engineer. So we had this conversation back in March at HIMSS and about presenting at JNUC, and really happy to have them here on the stage with us today. So yeah, if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm John, systems engineer with Barrow Neurological Institute. We are a sub of Common Spirit. My job is basically, I'm the Jamf admin, one of the 2 Jamf admins for our company.
I am the second Jamf admin, though the better one. So you'll see that through this presentation as to why. No,
no new upgrades for you.
So if one of you dies, who's the one that's going to take over?
The other one. My name is Darren Reed. I am actually a nurse. I worked in the neuro ICU for a little while. Transitioned into our informatics space for a while and helped with our EMR. But I love IT and technology type items, and so my focus now is on telemedicine and virtual care applications. But what ties into that, you've always heard about those resume or those job descriptions where they say as other duties as described or as needed. I'm also a Mac admin as well. So you don't hear too many nurse Mac admins out there, but that's all right.
Awesome. Before we begin, just wanted to let everybody know that there are accessibility options. If anybody needs closed captioning or anything like that, there's a QR code when you walk in that you could scan. That's for all of our sessions here at JNUC. Additionally, we're going to have a Q&A reserved for the end. So we're going to spend about the next 25-30 minutes with the session. So if you have any questions, jot them down. Once we're finished with the session, if you just simply raise your hand like this, I'll come around with the microphone. That way our friends who are tuning in online or watching the recording afterwards are able to hear your question. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam.
You go first.
I'm going to kick you guys off the stage.
I'm going with Adam.
So first, we want to talk about just what we're going to cover today, right? So you can read that real quickly, but I want to explain who Barrow is, why are we even here, right? We're going to discover some of our security needs and some breaches that we happen to have. And then we'll actually have story time, and John will walk through what our actual real-life examples that have happened to us, and we'll cover some of our future growth options, after which we'll have some Q&A, of course. So this is our beautiful building that you can see here that opened up a couple years ago. This is what we call the Neuroplex. Our neurosurgery group lives there, but the Barrow itself, we're the designated centers of excellence for 14 specific centers, which becoming a designated center of excellence is pretty hard to do. We've happened to do that in 14 specific specialties. We have 30 disease-specific centers and programs, 10 specialty-specific departments, and even those departments have subspecialties within them. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but the Ivy Brain Tumor Center is located in that same campus, and it's the largest phase 0 clinical trials program in the world. When you think of phase 0, that's cancer, like brain tumor research, where they are developing new drugs. And phase 1 is usually when you're doing human trials. We're doing phase 0, where we do genomic testing and we develop drugs specifically for the cancer that patient has. Largest one in the world. It's awesome. Thank you. Next one on the list is our Barrow Emergency Stroke Treatment Unit that we call BEST-U. We have 2 of them. We liked it so much we bought another one. The Newsweek lists Barrow as one of the best specialty hospitals in the world for neurosurgery, and U.S. News and World Reports ranks Barrow as the top destination for neuro rehab in the country. Additionally, Barrow has met the rigorous standards for comprehensive stroke certification by the Joint Commission. This certification is given in partnership with the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, which has separately awarded Barrow with the Get With the Guidelines Stroke Gold Plus Achievement Award, with target stroke honor roll and target type 2 diabetes honor roll. I can go on and on, sorry. We're patting ourselves on the back with this because a lot of this background is important to the stories that we share later. So we have a really highly specialized rehab center where we deal with patients that have had, quadriplegic accidents, and they come to a neuro rehab, and how are they going to handle the rest of their life with these type of disabilities? We're ranked by Doximity as the 2nd in the nation for our neurosurgery residency program and 45th for our neurology residency program, which is pretty amazing. We have an awesome group. Last thing I want to mention about who we are is we're part of Common Spirit Health. I don't know if you've heard of who Common Spirit Health is. It's not a super publicly announced brand out there, but it's the largest nonprofit hospital organization in the nation. We have, 142 hospitals, I believe. I'm looking at my boss right here, so when we're done, make sure he knows we did amazing. But tons of hospitals, really large corporate entity. Barrow is part of that entity, which is important to think about because we have our own IT subsystems within it. Some people like to call that shadow IT. We claim that we're not shadow IT, but that's okay. Thank you. So our security needs. We have to collaborate with a whole bunch of different platforms. So we have researchers. I just talked to you about phase 0 clinical trials with our IV brain tumor system. We have a really large footprint in the research space. We operate on 3 different networks. We have Windows, we have Apple, we have Android, we have Linux. Lots of different software options out there that loop in with that hardware, of course. We're an educational hospital. Like I mentioned, we have residency fellowship programs. And so if you think about all the complexities with all that, it gets even harder to manage those in a secure environment while still allowing your users to have the flexibility that they need. I mentioned Common Spirit Health. They have their own IT groups. They have their own cybersecurity team. And they'll look at us and make sure that we're doing the appropriate things that are necessary. I think we've had 2 penetration tests this year specifically, and I believe 2 IT audits for our environment specifically that were sent from the corporate environment. So we work closely with them to try to make sure we're doing well. An important thing for us also, you see on that last point there that we need to keep up with technology. We're the largest brain tumor research company in the world, right? So we need to make sure we're cutting edge of what technology is out there to be able to support that. So if you think about various microscopes, various machines that need to connect to that. You think of AI components that jump into that. We have high compute needs, all sorts of stuff that go into that. When you add all that complexity, your security needs also need to be complex as well. So, but I'll turn the time over to John to share with us some more information.
There we go. Thank you, Darren. Hello. So with all that stuff you heard there, all the people that we take care of, one of the biggest things we have is we also have a huge amount of scrutiny on us about the security. And one of our biggest problems is we have doctors who are working at multiple facilities. We have students that are going between their college campus, their residency program, study groups, everything else. Equipment's moving all the time. One of the things that we pride ourselves with our use of, not trying to commercial for Jamf, but with using Jamf, is that we have the security and the control over our devices that even the rest of our organization doesn't have at this part. One of the things we were talking about there when we had our penetration tests and our review just recently is that we found out that the about 150 devices that they have on the rest of Common Spirit of laptops, because they don't like to use the laptop at all, don't have any management software on it. They put CrowdStrike, they put a couple security programs on that are controlled by the IT department before they go out, but beyond that, they don't have any control over it. So one of my favorite stories that I like to tell when we talk about it and why it's such a benefit to people, every one of us that works in the IT field in some fashion or another. You guys have all had a long day. You've worked, anywhere from, 8, 12, 15 hours. You go home, you're ready to go to bed, that's all you want to do, right? You want to lay there, go to bed, maybe read a book, play on your laptop, play some games, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm sitting there one night, thought my day was over, and all of a sudden I get this email, but I look at my phone, and I see, if any of you by chance happen to see this before the morning, 10:15 at night, by the way, guys, could we please do something about this? We go read through the email. Apparently, one of our research departments had taken a laptop. Doctor left us. Because she had research on there, rather than turn it over to us, which would be the normal standard thing so we could do a DoD wipe to it or reset it, she gave up free willingly her account password. And they had a new staff member come in who was just a research assistant. That research assistant starts working on that very same laptop with all the same data saved previously that we could have, you know, backed up or we could have saved for them. Instead, what's buried in there was a Trojan that nobody knew anything about. Well, they gave it to that new research assistant. That new research assistant starts using it, finally signs onto the network for the first time with the device. Not, because like we told you, we have 3 different networks we float between. They finally hit the one network that's the most monitored, and it flags everything. Well, it flagged everything at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but by the time it made it over to us, it was 9:30 at night. So by the time it made it to our bosses and they got out to us, it was 9:52. I remember this up here. By the time I read it, it was 10:15. At 10:18, that computer was stopped, dead stop, because thanks to Jamf. When we went in, I was able to go log in, pull up that device without a problem, went in there, immediately locked out the device, even was able to put a screen up telling them to contact me on, you know, and gave them a private number to contact me with. Now, the neatest thing in the world is that research assistant had actually gone home, shut it, put it in her bag, and took it home and didn't think anything of it. 6:30 in the morning, she goes to open it to have a cup of coffee and get ready for her next day, and all of a sudden she can't do anything. Well, that's when all the phone calls start, and all upper management starts going crazy because they think they've lost all the data. Hadn't lost a thing. We got her in, we put her in an isolated network that we had built and everything else. We're able to get in, we're able to actually remove the Trojan and do everything else before it ever had a chance to attack the system. But knowing that our little department of 2,000 to 5,000 people, depending on what time of year it is, depending on how much people we have at the time for projects, was able to stop that versus our company, who unfortunately we've dealt with a couple ransomwares in the last couple of years, like so many other companies. So that's part of the control that we really love about it, and the security that's provided that, you know, has come to put us on that higher platform. Like we told you earlier, one of the things that, you know, we get a lot more leeway because of our research, because of how we're funded, but at the same time, we're held to a little bit higher scrutiny. So we enjoy that flexibility that we get to do that. Another great example I'd love to tell you guys about is doctor, really good doctor of ours. Doctor who's actually one of our chairs, sits on several boards with the group. He's got an iPad that he lives off of. We all know those people, right? Doesn't care much about the laptop, doesn't care much about the phone, but he's got an iPad that means everything in the world to him. He goes to work out at the gym after a long day of work in the morning, doing some surgery and everything else, comes out, back window smashed, bag's gone. Now, luckily, we have security on it already. He's already put his stuff. Doesn't matter, though. You know there's still a way to retrieve data one way or another or get to things. Then all of a sudden, he lets us know that there's about 5 unpublished research papers and also a whole bunch of PI from about 2,000 patients that he has on a PHI. That becomes a threat to us. Well, we're able to lock it. We're able to also go in and do a Find My to it. We're able to do everything we needed to do to basically, we couldn't recover it, but we were able to make sure we fried it before it went anywhere else. Protecting our patients, protecting our staff, protecting the company as a whole. My boss likes to jokingly call me the quartermaster of his team, because one of the things that we have to do is keep up on that technology. And that's one of my jobs that I'm entrusted with heavily, is that every time Apple comes out and makes an announcement that there's something new coming, the schedule they have for the M4 releases coming up this next year, everything else. We have to keep up with it, and we have to keep up with the security, because our doctors demand the best. They buy the best. And it's not that we're flexing doing that. It's a matter of, like we talked about earlier, the equipment that they're buying has to have the best. So we have to keep up with the security needs of it. Another items that we've been bringing in now is now we have the Vision Pros. Somebody goes, what would you be using Vision Pros in a hospital for? Well, neuro rehabs, they actually use them to help people out with their rehabilitation. We also do it for mapping surgeries. So we've used many other different VR sets before today, but now with the Vision Pro, everybody wants the Vision Pro. They want the latest and the greatest, you know, as they see it. So we're working to integrate those now in with our system to get those in. We have had a huge expansion on IT. I think I'm behind on slides, aren't I, Darren? Let me catch up with this, I apologize. Let you guys see that for a second. I apologize, I forgot about those. That's another one we have a big problem with sharing. You have people working in a lab, you have 5, 6 people. They want to set up shared labs. We have an ability to do that. There is a way to do it, but there's a right way and a wrong way. And not just the fact of our PHI, not just the fact of company data, but also your personal data. That's one that gets me right there. I'm more concerned every single day when I log into anything about where my credit cards are, where my ID information is going, everything else, and people will share these together. And it kills me on it, but we find it every day. So between the Jamf Health Check, which is a great thing for us because we have a lot of people that come to us also and they're having to watch their budgets and they'll want to know stuff. They'll want to know how their stuff is and they'll want to know if it really works. The Jamf Health Check really helps us keep up on the equipment also. While it's geared more towards the Jamf side, it also does let us know constantly a rotation inventory of our items. We're now coupling that and backing that up with a few other products. The involving department or environment, as I said earlier, we are constantly changing. What doctors we have here this year doing research may not be the doctors we'll have in 2 to 3 years at the end of a life cycle of a piece of equipment. Every time we get a new doctor, we get a need for new equipment. Depending on that equipment changes every single time. And so the problem is we have to be ready for whatever that doctor walks into. We had a doctor who brought in a microscope, just to let you know that even though we like to claim that we like to be the latest and greatest, like I've told you, we had a doctor who just walked in, one of the most brilliant neurosurgeons that we have that came into us. He wants to use this microscope that is almost 15 years old. And nothing of new technology will keep up on it. So we have to, you know, keep alive and work on old equipment also. So increased partnership with the cybersecurity, what Darren was talking about earlier and which I will reiterate. Once again, multiple companies. You have our original mother company, which you have us, which we obviously protect ourselves and take care of and look out for everybody we work with. We have Dignity Health, which is now Common Spirit, which branches out to all the other groups. When that happened, you know, as anybody has ever been part of a large group that is, I don't know how you want to put, merged together and tried to form one company out of it, you have a lot of heads in a lot of different directions. So we might think that we've covered all of our bases and have everything done, but then all of a sudden somebody else will drop in and say, hey, wait, that's my program, I want to talk about this. And we start the whole process over. So luckily, one of the things that we love with the Jamf is we're able to keep our documentation, we're able to keep everything backed up, and usually that answers all their questions they have about it, especially once they see the security and the control we have. Now, my part right here, which is near and dear to me, the growing device capacity and need, constantly growing. We flux every single year because at the end of every year we have residents, we have fellows, we have other people who are leaving the program. Well, here's one of the greatest things with our program. Almost every single one of those programs, when they leave, when they complete their fellowship, or their residency, they're actually allowed to keep their device. We will check them for PHI. We will make them do a one-time wipe once we have removed them from both our Apple school and then from Jamf. And we'll assist them through it and everything else, but they'll get to keep their device. Kind of a little extra bonus. Now, some of those people that's great for because maybe they only signed on for 1 or 2 years. Some guys are walking away with a 7-year-old iPad or a 7-year-old laptop, but they still love them. We all know those users who don't want to get rid of the old. But we'll see then all of a sudden the new students come in. And this last year, let's see, one program of residencies that I've been used to handling, we would bring in, I think it was 5 new residents or 3 or 5 new residents. This year they brought in 14. I don't get any warning. I get 30 days being told that they'll be starting in 30 days. You know, usually for the purchasing, get them in. So I have to keep our license and everything balanced, which the guys over at Jamf are really good at working with, really easy to get that up. But we also see as we're growing more, because here's what's going on, as our research has gone on, our clinical side is growing faster and faster. We have a whole new floor that we haven't even built out yet of that neuroplex. It's already spoken for. They're just getting the funding to obviously put it out, to build it. Well, the problem is that we have more and more people that are shifting towards the Mac environment. The providers want that Mac environment because they want they want obviously all the things that a Mac does. Well, that brings us more into it. So what was a novelty that we used to keep with 150, I think it was 150 iPads and 100 licenses for desktops, we've now doubled in the last 2 years. And we're already looking that this next year, we're probably going to double again, and we're also going to start adding on the extras that we have been wanting because we can now justify it with the numbers that we're having. The big thing is like I said, I know it sounds like I'm going to repeat myself, but with all the different devices, phones, iPads, laptops, and now the Vision Pros especially, and now we're even getting more and more requests to start including watches. We're actually bringing in our first test watches for the practices because doctors are claiming that they're running, and residents running from one place to another and trying to just pull up the thing when they could just look there and go from there. We understand it. It's an ease. If they want to pay for it, we can do it. But with the security and the ability that we can shut them down, we can stop a problem before it ever has really started. It's been identified, but we can stop it before it ever goes anywhere. That is the biggest bonus for us that has saved us time and time again. And with that, I think I'm going to bring Darren back up. Where'd Adam go?
Oops. So I'll just add a little bit to what John was saying, and we'll invite Adam to start passing around the microphone soon. But all of you have heard of PHI, right? I mean, protected health information. The risk of that data getting out is massive. I mean, those are huge lawsuits, and you can't handle that. And it's data that needs to be protected. And so when we even think of our Mac environment and our iOS environment, this is even all mostly, I want to say like 99% of it is in the research space. So we're not even talking about even getting to the point of having these devices in the clinical space yet. So there's all that complexity that ends up adding up to such a massive need there. And so that's what's the benefit of Jamf, for Jamf for us, is that we get to manage a lot of those items to be able to get ahead of the issues, as well as deployments, right? I mean, you can have the automated device enrollment. You just hand it out you can ship a sealed box to them, and they just open it up, and they get that nice user experience. You always like to peel all the labels off your brand new Mac. That's always nice to have. So being able to provide that experience to our high tier providers, that's kind of what they expect, right? And so being able to add on and bolt on those additional security tools, and we haven't even gotten to the point of even looking at Jamf Protect at this point yet. So these are all tools that we've used within just the standard Jamf Pro, being able to secure our environment while also adding on and taking advantage of, I should say, already existing network tools that's being used on the corporate side. So that's kind of what we wanted to highlight today, was that even though we're in a weird, kind of crazy corporate environment, where our corporate side doesn't even manage Macs in a way that you would kind of hope that they would, we're able to, as a smaller group of this larger corporate entity, manage Macs in a better way, even though we're still staying compliant and happy in that larger environment. All right, questions?
Yeah, if everybody just wants to raise their hands with any questions, I'll come around with the microphone. We got about 21 minutes, so we should be good with questions. So I'm going to start over here.
Hey, John, you mentioned something about a Jamf health check. What exactly is that, and how does it work?
Well, the Jamf health check, I'll make sure I clarify because I realized what I was saying, that it clicks in your head afterwards. The Jamf health check, which Adam actually has done with us in a time, we've done 2 of them, I think, now, and just in my time taking over, it's checking to verify with what our needs are, that the Jamf is actually keeping up with what our needs are. Is there products that we're utilizing that we don't need? Is there products that we need that we're not utilizing? That kind of a thing. Most of the time, I believe if you contact your rep, they can help you go through it. But it really goes there. And one of the things that Adam, whether he's doing it for us, and maybe I'm going to get kicked here in just a minute, but we also look at our numbers. We look at what our actions have been over the last few months, things like that, and that helps us identify that. That's where I was going at with that. I didn't mean to think that the Jamf was running a health check on your actual laptop, but it was actually, it's running on your environment to make sure that it's, that you're getting everything out of it you need, both security and performance.
Yeah, great description. Essentially, the health check is a engagement where somebody from Jamf has a essentially pick list of items that they'll go through, making sure that you're taking advantage of everything that's possible within your environment. Are there any outdated policies? Are there smart groups that aren't being used anymore? Are we really implementing best practices when we're setting up policies and any other configurations within your environment? So everybody in this room, anybody attending online, you should have a customer success manager, a sales engineer, and a account executive. If that's a service that you're interested in, please just reach out to one of those individuals and they'll be able to help you out more with a health check. So,
And to add to that answer too, what kind of drove the decision to ask for something like that was that both of us inherited this environment. How many of you have inherited a Jamf environment? Yeah, raise there. See,
we literally, I never touched a Mac device before COVID, and I was a normal IT technician out in a hospital, and that's how I met these two gentlemen. Actually, I was helping them deploy for telemedicine, and when I got hired over to work with them, which was a great, bonus for me, there's another gentleman running our Jamf environment. He actually built it from scratch up with the Jamf reps. Well, unfortunately, 3 months, I think it was, into me being there, about 3 months, he left. And it was a very sudden leaving. And it left us in a position where they're like, hey, he left at 12:30, it's 2 o'clock, you're in charge of it now. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know. I know how to put them in the system. I know how to look them up, And so I turned around and said, hey, Darren, how much do you know? And that's how I dragged him in with me.
we both had logins. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So that's where it came in handy with Adam saying, hey, we feel like we understand our environment pretty well because we had to dig through it. Once you get ownership of that, you have to start digging and understanding what you have. But we didn't know if we were taking full advantage of it appropriately or if what we had deployed was done in the right way.
Because we were honestly at the consideration point. That's why we asked Adam. We were at the point of, should we just go ahead and let this one die and build a whole new one from scratch?
Yeah.
And Adam pulled us aside, or pulled us on a call and sat there and said, let's take a look. And sure enough, that benefited us a lot. We didn't have to rebuild. We were just able to take over and learn more about what we had.
yeah, your sales engineer can definitely come on a call, take a look. If it's something more advanced where you actually, maybe should start from scratch, or maybe we need some retraining or anything like that, we have plenty of services to help. Jamf admins move around a lot. They move from organization to organization, and sometimes we're left with, unfortunately, a mess. And we do have options to help you with that. So, cool. We got a question right here.
Do you find that by having more tools available to you and a better understanding of your environment, you are held to a higher standard than Windows devices?
Yes,
Very much.
absolutely.
Very much. I mean, your standard IT environment, let's just get real, is a Microsoft-based environment. I came from that. Like I said, I had everything of it. And the minute we started breaking out in Macs, every time we hand a new Mac out to a new physician, and please understand, one of the things to add on to what Darren said earlier is, well, we said the 99% of our Macs are in the research environment. Those same research doctors are running clinical. So they're taking that Mac with them to the clinic. They may not be using it in the clinic, but they're transferring that data back to the Mac when they go back to the lab. So it's getting used either way. It's just not in front of the customer. But yes, we are held to a much higher one. If there was a virus that could any which way link its way back to a Mac on our environment, we would be, answering for the next 2 years and paying for it every single moment of it, compared to my opinion, a Microsoft OS would get okay, let's fix the breach and move on, and we'll smack somebody around a little bit later, So that, I believe so.
Yeah, and to add to that though, if you, like how we mentioned kind of the background story of our environment that we have, we talked about how we have Common Spirit, our larger corporate entity, right? Hundreds of thousands of employees, versus our Barrow environment is 500 to 1,000 people, right? That much smaller piece of pie, the large corporate entity. That when cybersecurity started looking at us closer with kind of like binoculars or a microscope, they specifically quoted that they know who we were and they wanted to hold us to a higher standard than the rest of IT was. So not only is our Mac environment being watched really close, but also our Windows environment as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand. We're used to it. Yeah.
Hi, I also work for a health insurance company, so I'm knee deep or neck deep in HIPAA and PHI. And of course, Adam is my SE as well. I have two questions. First, how do you handle legal holds, you know, on all your separate devices and everything? And the second question is, I heard you say you had 3 separate networks.
Yes.
How do you manage that in terms of, okay, which network is allowed to go to Jamf? Which network is proxied? Which network is firewalled? How do you handle doing all 3 networks, making sure that those devices are getting the policies and profiles?
Okay, so with Jamf, the nice thing is all you have to have is a network connection, some kind of Wi-Fi network anywhere it is, and it will auto send out any updates and everything. We rely on the mother company, I'm going to call it that, Common Spirit, to notify us of updates. And they've had a good communication so far, track record with us of telling us of updates or pushing it to the packets that we need to implement, and we push it out that way. We have the second network, which is our Barrow network. Our Barrow network actually runs kind of piggyback on the Common Spirit. It's just managed by our people for different purposes, mainly for our research. The third one is the Barrow Brain and Spine, which that one is a whole different group technically, but once again, while they're using their own Wi-Fi, their own network connection, you know, everything pretty much is separate all together on that one. Because of the Jamf moving over, and that's all them, no matter where they go, we catch up with them. And if we can't find them, we have a thing that lets us know. We have our thing set up that we check in that shows us when, you know, as you all have, where it shows you so many devices that haven't hit. We start looking at those devices and finding out, are they aged out? Are they just not available? Do they not have room left? You know, we start looking at those issues and we go after them. It's a tedious thing. It's almost, I don't want to say it's a full-time job for us at our size, but it is a good chunk of our time. You know, every day I log in, I do my usual work, and I spend 30 minutes right off in the bat in Jamf looking to see if there's any errors, any notices that I need to see or anything else. I know Darren's in it almost all day long doing updates and other stuff for us. So, I mean, it's just keeping up with it, honestly. It's a balancing act and communication, and then after that, it's just keeping up with it.
And as for your question on legal holds, we haven't really been approached with that yet. We haven't had anyone say, hey, we need to do a legal hold on this. So it's hard to say what our full process is, right? Because we haven't discovered that completely.
We follow the old-fashioned one for the moment. When it's a legal hold, I have 2 racks that are actually basically like safes. They get marked, they get labeled, and then they get stuck in there until which time we get told to either release them or the date expires. That we do the old-fashioned one like that, and then of course right then from there we'll do a full DoD wipe on them and force them to go through that before we do anything else. But yeah, we do an old-fashioned version on that one because we haven't been given anything new at this time.
Yeah, or we just simply lock it, right, so no one can get to it. But yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, how many total devices in your Jamf instance, and how big is your total team supporting it?
Currently, our team is, let's see, we have approximately, I can tell you right now, I have 4 regular technicians, I have 2 analysts, I have 2 network engineers, and then I have a boss that's a jack of all trades, believe it or not. And I also have a director who, believe it or not, remember about a month and a half ago, all you IT guys that were dealing with that beautiful, what was that? CrowdStrike failure, remember that one? I had a director who, as people were coming up into our office, because it was easier to get the research people just to bring their computers to us, their laptops to us, who was coming out and taking people into his office and doing the quick fix to get them back on the road. So we have a team, I would say, let's just say 12 people. I also have a couple ClinApps people who are really, really good with IT, and especially a couple of them that are, I want to say, wannabe tech nerds also on their own. So they usually keep up with it, and they have just enough rights that they can help us out with certain things. At the moment, there's only 3 technicians, or 2 technicians, an analyst, and the management who has actual access inside of Jamf. But everybody else, you know, is helping us to support every device. That's the neat thing about to give you a quick thing to help you understand, Our IT technicians, because we watch that word, or shadow IT as we talked earlier. Normal IT technicians inside of Common Spirit work on Microsoft devices. That is the 99.999% of their jobs. That's it, or Microsoft devices. At Barrow, as we told you earlier, we have everything. Microsoft, we have Linux, we have Apple, we have everything. So all of our technicians are actually, instead of being an IT tech, we are systems engineers, because we're expected to know the 4 to 5 different systems we work on and continually grow with them. So does that answer your question?
So our environment size, we're looking at, I think we're at 250 max and rapidly growing. And our iPads/iOS is more around, we're getting close to 200. I don't think we've hit past 200.
No, we're getting ready to release our thing of where I talked about we're doubling, because we have other departments that are asking. What happened was that number should be quite a bit larger. Common Spirit does use, because of telehealth, they do use, they moved all their people over. In fact, they quit using Microsoft Office and went to using Workspace ONE. And so they have an environment in which they can control Macs there. And unfortunately, we can't keep them in Jamf and the other because of the profile requirements on the two. So we have to release them. So we have a ton more in our Apple. If you go and look at in our Apple School Manager, we have like over 600 devices just on iPads alone. But we can't dual them, so we have to assign them to one or the other.
And we play in Workspace ONE and Jamf with those devices, but yeah.
I got a question for you guys. The CrowdStrike issue.
Yeah.
How has leadership responded to, unfortunately, when that CrowdStrike event happened? You guys have a pretty large fleet of Macs in your environment, so you were able to kind of keep going and doing your thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Has there been, any considerations of growing your Mac fleet based off of what happened? Has there been any additional requests?
Yes. Yes, there has been. A lot of our physicians who are running clinical and back and forth have started moving more the other physicians that are doing the same back and forth, because they lost crucial time, as everybody did when that happened, whether you were down for a couple hours or you were cut down for a week to 2 weeks. I mean, we were still fixing people up to a month later, because you have research people who are off site. They come back, grab their laptop, and all of a sudden, oh my God, this doesn't work. We saw with the Mac environment, with the help of the Jamf system, the Jamf staff, and everything else, I believe we saw maybe 2-3 hours max. And most of our research, let's be honest, they don't come until 10 o'clock anyway, so they didn't see anything that day.
Yeah,
except
our Macs
for a
didn't get
reboot.
hit at all, but yeah.
So
I think the lesson learned there was diversify your fleet a little bit.
Yeah, there's some value for that for sure.
Got a question right here.
So how do you deal with the CIS benchmarks, being a research institution with all the requirements are on top of you?
That's a great question, and we're working to enhance that more. That was on our last slide, was our future growth. So that's why we're looking into Jamf Protect and having some of those items allow us to do better compliance. That's also why we've been partnering with our cybersecurity team so much. They'll do audits of our system periodically. And I believe they use those CIS benchmarks.
one of the things we didn't mention too is that Common Spirit cybersecurity, they actually have 1 or 2 people that are in their cybersecurity that does handle the little bit of Macs they have, the dozen or so. They actually have a view-only access to our Jamf system.
Yeah.
So that they can go in and take a look at it, and if they have questions or anything, because every now and then we'll get an email from them asking us to run a report, and they're looking for like either aged out devices or something like that. But we actually haven't seen that in the last year ever since we've been up to date on it.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was, do you guys feed your logs over to a SIM, such as Splunk or Microsoft Sentinel?
No, they do not directly, because their Splunk with Common Spirit is everything's network driven. They'll see our devices, they just won't get the naming convention like they get with their stuff. So what we'll have to look for is we have to go look for either our serial or the Mac ID. Not a big deal to change it, just we have to do one extra step.
They have the network username tied into that anyway, so we can find it by that.
And one area that I did identify when we did perform the health check, obviously, was complying with things like CIS benchmarks. So one thing that I did suggest out of that health check was to use the Jamf compliance editor, which, if hopefully everybody watched the keynote this morning. We're going to be having some more compliance features and functionalities built right into Jamf Pro. So a really nice, quick way, if anybody in the room or anybody online has not checked out Compliance Editor, check it out. You'll be able to get your environment compliant rather quickly. Cool. We got about 5 minutes left. Do we have any additional questions in the room?
Okay with giving you time back. There's nothing wrong with that.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So Darren, John, if anybody has any additional questions, how can they reach out to you?
I have cards with me right now that I can give you my contact info. We can hang out here as well if you have questions, but search for us. We're both on LinkedIn, I believe.
Yeah, we're both on LinkedIn. Both on LinkedIn, and we're also both on Barrow, so we can give that information out.
But yeah. Not Slack.
No. The question was, are they on the Mac admin Slack?
I'm a consumer of Mac admins and and Jamf Nation, all those forums, but I haven't been a big contributor, which I know I'll be changing. I want some of that swag. So.
Awesome. Well, John.
Thank you, sir.
Darren, thank
Adam,
you so much
you.
for a great session. Everybody in attendance, whether you're here in person or you're watching this virtually, thank you so much. In the JNUC app, you could submit feedback, so please submit feedback for the session so that we could improve for next year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming.